Hey everybody, Bones here, Bones Garage, just bringing you an update what's going on at the garage. So, 1977 Corvette restomod, she is coming along beautiful. And look, we have the new manifold on, and golly, that thing just looks so good sitting on that motor. Look at how beautiful that is. That is just absolutely gorgeous. So we also now have all of the cables hooked up. We have your throttle pedal cable right here. That is hooked up. It runs all the way across, nice, into the wall, and then clips in. Always make sure they're clipped in, or else you could get a leak inside the car. The next thing we hooked up was we put the bracket in for the return spring for your throttle cable. The next thing we hooked up is this cable here. This is actually the throttle positioning cable. And what that does is we have a 4L80E transmission in here. In other words, it's a 4-speed automatic computer-controlled transmission. That's what the E stands for. It's electronic. The 4 is 4-speed, 80 is the designation, so it's more like a turbo 400 transmission with a fourth gear. Basically, it is a turbo 400 with a fourth gear and electronic controls. There's a lot of pieces inside that transmission that are the same as the turbo 400. But it does have a fourth gear. And being that it is the heavy-duty transmission, it will last to this 600 horsepower that's supposed to be coming out of this motor. So anyway, getting back to the cable. This cable allows the standalone computer that controls the transmission to know what position your throttle pedal is in. So if you're hard on it and you're cruising along and you just floor it, well, it knows to raise the pressure in the lines as well as to drop gears. So if you're in third gear, it'll drop it down to second. If you're in second, it'll drop it down to fourth, and so on. If you're just coming off of the traffic light and you take off nice and easy and you're just cruising along, it knows to shift nice and easily. So this way, your computer, your standalone computer, is now communicating with your transmission. This cable goes all the way around and then down to here, and you can see it right there. That has a potentiometer in there. And what that does is it converts movement into a digital number. So it'll start at 0.4 and go all the way up to 5. Is what the digital numbers of this is. And that will translate that to the computer, which will translate it into the computer inside the transmission, which will then control the shifts and what's supposed to be going on under there. Another thing we did is we had put the correct gear on this distributor. This is the new electronic distributor that I've been boasting about so much that I love. And yeah, I really do love these distributors. One of the things we had to do is change the drive gear on it. And when I talk about the drive gear, that is the drive gear for your distributor. And in a video I did a while back, I showed you that the drive gear also runs the oil pump. And there's a shaft that this splines into, and it is what actually drives the oil pump. So the cam turns your distributor gear, then the distributor actually turns the oil pump, which will be sitting down here somewhere. So that's what this is for. And the gear on here, which was the wrong gear for what they're doing, is actually a composite gear. You can run these with the cam we have in there, but you cannot run these if you have a high pressure or a high volume oil pump. It will tear the gears up. It's just plastic. It's a composite. It's not steel. So what we did is we actually went to a softer metal, which is bronze, rather than the steel gear or the composite gear. The bronze sits right in the middle of those two, of the steel and the composite. And why we're using that is the cam in this motor is a solid roller cam. So these cams are a softer metal than, say, a flat tappet cam. Flat tappet cam is much harder, very much easier to crack in half than one of these cams. What happens is if you use the steel gear in your distributor, it will tear up the gear on the end of the cam. Then you have to take your whole motor out to replace the cam. It's just a big nightmare. So we use the bronze gear, which mesh nicely, and it's also good with the high volume, high pressure oil pump that is inside of this motor. So that is really, really important to know those things when you're putting a motor together, guys. Another thing we're doing, this bracket that holds the steering shaft in place for the power steering rack and pinion, it's always driven me crazy. See how ugly all of the end is? It looks like somebody chewed it off. I want to take it off. We're going to take the whole bracket apart and we're going to clean all this up, and then we're going to send the whole thing out and get it repowder coated, because it just looks like crap. And every time you look down, that's all you see is all that gnaw on there. There's some more down on this side over here and some more of it down over here. Nobody's fault. Just, if it was in any other car, you would never notice it. But in this car, with all the nice stuff, once these get all polished up and they're really shiny and the exhaust goes on here and it's really clean and shiny, that is going to look like crap. So we'll take that all off, clean up all the ends, make it look really good, send it back out, have it powder coated like everything else is. So that's all set up now. I showed you the distributor, showed you the gear. Now we're working also on the power windows. This is your old power window regulator. This is your old power window track, the one that's situated and stays put on the door. This is your new power window regulator. That's the old motor, and they all come apart. So this whole thing comes apart. Got a grease in here, and every once in a while you're supposed to come in and clean this grease up, or else it turns into stone. And that's what this has done. It's pretty much hard as a rock. You got to scrape the grease off to get it out. And what happens if you don't have enough grease is what happened to this one. The motor would turn and it would skip. Because if you look closely, you can see the teeth are beveled. They actually do that on the teeth. And the teeth have to mesh into that little worm gear right there. So as the motor turns, it turns that worm gear, which turns those teeth, and if you don't have a good connection, it will just click and not spin. And that's what was happening with this motor inside the car. And you can see it's real old, it's real beat up. This is a nice new motor. You can see even the tensioner spring, all brand new. It all works. Everything is really nice. We're just going to grease everything up. You see how nice and flat those teeth are if you look across the top right here? And the other teeth had that cup in them. These are nice and flat. Everything is brand new. And that's the way I love doing it. I hate using anything remanufactured. I prefer brand new. Remanufactured is a 50-50 shot if it's going to work. At least with brand new, you got a 75% shot that it's going to work or not. So we're going to get all this all greased up, get all this together, put all the parts together, put the cover plate on it, put the new bushing in it, get everything all set up, because this goes in here like so. Then this has a little bushing right here, and it sets right in there. That's your bushing right there. See that? That's the bushing. And then the whole thing gets turned over and goes right there like that. And then this gets connected to that, which this goes over the top of. And then everything sits together. You 3 screws, hold it together. Once you get it all together, now you can take this screw out. If you guys are ever doing this and you take this screw out too early, that spring is going to unload and it's going to go pop and scare the crap out of you. Usually not enough to hurt you. Might maybe cut you up a little bit because the edges are sharp if it hits you, but usually doesn't hurt too bad. I've had them snap on me before. But yeah, once you get it all together, then you can take that screw out, the tension goes onto the spring, and everything is really nice. So yeah, we're getting all that together, getting all that set up. We got to do both doors again because, like I said, these motors were really old, really slow, and then the gears would skip every once in a while. The regulators, they're just worn out. There's a lot of play inside this arm here. So this arm to this arm, there's a lot of play there. There's a lot of play underneath here. So just change them. You're doing all this work on this car. You're spending, I mean, that motor's got to be a good 12 grand just on the motor. The transmission, he's got about another 7 into just the transmission. So there's a lot going on with this car, and it's just better off. Just change them. Make them new. I don't know why anybody put this all together, and you can see because I think it's, which do we have? Yeah, this side still has the motor in it. That's the old motor. They put the whole car back together with the old motor. Why? Put a new one in it. It's not that bad. So that's what we're getting done. So there you go, guys. A little more stuff, a little more knowledge. A lot of fun, and we're coming along nicely on this car. So I will talk to you real soon. Have fun. Okay, bye.